Um, Hi, and welcome to Stardog Demo Day. Today we're talking about LLM-powered Stardog Voicebox and our enterprise knowledge graph offering. We run demo days so that you can see inside our platform, learn about new features, and ask questions. I'm Mandy Sadowski. I'm the VP of Marketing at Stardog. As generative AI and large language models gain more mainstream traction, we've been fielding a lot of questions from customers and companies that we talk to about how Stardog uses AI and how AI uses Stardog. We have Mike Grove joining us today. Mike's a Stardog founder and LLM architect, and he'll discuss the combined power of LLMs and knowledge graphs. Before I hand it over to Mike, I'm going to run quickly through a few slides, and I promise to be fast so we can get to the good stuff, which is the live demos. Today, we're going to cover what is a knowledge graph, why knowledge graphs and large language models and AI are better together. We'll introduce and demo Stardog Voicebox, as well as tell you about our Voicebox early access program. And we'll leave time at the end for question and answer. Really quick, just a reminder, please use the Q&A queue rather than chat. It'll be difficult to answer the questions in chat. Put them in the question and answer queue, and we'll get to as many as we can. All right. So Stardog provides organizations with an enterprise knowledge graph. If you don't know what that is, it's a flexible semantic data layer that helps answer complex queries across data silos. So by bringing your data together based on business meaning rather than where it's stored, more people in your organization get access to the answers they need when they need them. So that's a really high level overview. If you're already familiar with Stardog, you know that. If not, we can go deeper, and there's plenty of other demo days that we really dive deep into enterprise knowledge graphs. Also, on the next slide, we just have a quick level set for everybody. Anybody who's new, we're going to talk today about LLMs and Gen AI. Give these definitions a read if you need to, as they are separate but related terms. And by the way, organizations are using these technologies. I just saw a recent article in VentureBeat where more than half of organizations, that was 55%, are experimenting with generative artificial intelligence, and almost 20% are already implementing it in their operations. So this isn't something that's far out in the future. The wave will come at some point. It's here, and I'm guessing that a lot of you know that, and that's why you're here today as well. All right. Finally, just let's talk about knowledge graphs, that flexible semantic data layer, and LLMs go really well together. The old relational data structures of the past are outdated in the AI era. In fact, in a recent report, which is what this is is from, Gartner calls out how users expect answers to questions. So LLMs and knowledge graphs together can help enterprises who have users in your organization that need answers to questions meet that demand. All right, I know I flew through that. That was fast. Mike, over to you to talk further about this and show some demos of Voicebox.
Cool. Well, thank you, Mandy, for the intro, both for me and about Stardog, the platform. As Mandy said, I'm Mike. I'm one of the founders here. I'm the original architect of our platform, and I'm very excited to talk to everyone today about Stardog Voicebox. It's my first chance to talk about it live. Mandy talked a little bit about our platform. The idea for our platform has always been to provide a capability for enterprises to create a comprehensive data layer. A lot of the challenges that enterprises face ultimately come down to data problems, not having accurate, timely data that they can base business decisions on. And generative AI is no different. It needs good data too, but there are two particular challenges that generative AI introduces to the enterprise that have deeply affected our design for Voicebox and how we built it, how we think about it. So I want to just mention those briefly. Then we will jump into a demo. We don't want to keep from that too long because that's the fun part. That's why everyone's here, I'm sure, to see Voicebox. But the two things that have greatly kind of affected how we think about Voicebox are the challenges that LLMs, these models, they're finite, they're trained, and then there's no new information. You can't base business decisions that are critical on out-of-date information. Similarly, models can generate statistically probable, valid, often sensical, but incorrect answers. So the term for this is hallucination. So these two unique challenges that generative AI presents will be stumbling blocks for the organizations as they try and introduce this technology into their enterprise. That's something that we've taken to heart in building Voicebox. So what Voicebox isn't necessarily a new LLM. We're not encoding your data in the language model, actually. Voicebox is a user of Stardog. So we're using these generative AI technology is to, in a way, digitize me. Digitize all of Stardog, all the technical folks, all that expertise about how to create knowledge graphs. And that's what we're digitizing. That's what we're building into Voicebox. Voicebox is a user of the Stardog platform, just like I am, just like many of you maybe, hopefully will be soon, for those of you who are not. But that's the idea of Voicebox. It's not creating the answers. The answers are not coming from Voicebox. The source of truth is your knowledge graph. So your data is always up to date. It's always accurate. It's always complete because your knowledge graph has breadth of the entire enterprise, can access all of its data. Similarly, it can hallucinate. Voicebox is using that information that's coming from the knowledge graph, that source of truth. It's not making things up. So it directly confronts these two challenges that generative AI throws in front of us. So that's kind of part of our guiding principles for Voicebox. We'll talk more about how it works and see some more demos, but I want to jump into our first look at Voicebox. So the first thing I'm going to do is jump over to Stardog Studio. And Stardog Studio is our environment, we call it our IDE for the knowledge graphs, for building knowledge graphs. So one of the key abilities of Voicebox is to create queries. It's got to use that knowledge graph. So primary way you use the knowledge graph is to get it to just to write a query. So my use case here is a customer 360 kind of scenario. This data is actually available on cloud right now. It's the training 360 kit, so you can go play with it if you wanted to take a look. You see, I asked a question, how many customers have purchased orders for more than $1,000? And the product purchase was in the electronics department. So I got my answer. It was 6. 6 isn't the most helpful. It's just a number. So I can work with Voicebox and it can be my co-pilot. Again, it knows how to use Stardog. So return only names and emails. So I'm going to have it go ahead and evolve this query for me as my understanding of my requirements change and progress. So you can see, rather than getting 6, the answer, but not necessarily helpful, I can get names and emails because maybe these are obviously big spenders. So maybe I want to send them a thank you for spending over $1,000 on something that they bought at my company. Maybe I want to know what they bought at the company, so I can go ahead and continue to work with Voicebox, continue to have it amend this query for me. So I can go ahead and ask it for that. And you probably see here the query is getting rewritten in the background. So Voicebox, go ahead and writing that for me. I can see now that I've got the products that were purchased by each of those people. And maybe there's a particular set of products. Maybe I've got a new TV coming out and I want to send not only a thank you, but a coupon for people to buy another TV. Who doesn't need more TVs? So once again, I can work with Voicebox. I can further refine my request. It'll amend that query, give me precisely what I need. So I get down to the exact result set that I was looking for. The 3 people who bought TVs in the electronics department for more than $10,000. I didn't have to write any code. There was no expertise. I didn't even really have to know how the data was laid out in the knowledge graph. Voicebox takes care of all of that for me. These are things I would have done before. Manually look at the knowledge graph, understand the schema, try and figure it out, see where the data, all handled by Voicebox. I can just ask what I need. If I didn't get it right the first time, I can continue to work with Voicebox in this kind of co-pilot manner, have it build exactly the right query for me to get the right data out of the knowledge graph. And back to what I was saying about, this information is not coming from Voicebox, it's coming from the knowledge graph. Voicebox generated the query, not the answer. And I can see, how did Voicebox come up with this answer? What's in it? It came up with the query. I can see exactly where this data came from, all the way down to what tables it was read out of in the knowledge graph. So it's very exciting from an explainability point of view. So that's our first look at Voicebox. We'll be jumping back into Voicebox at a couple different points today. But I do want to jump back over to our slides and talk a bit more about Voicebox. So how in the world did we build this thing in the first place? So this is a kind of a very high level architecture. It's a bit more marketecture than architecture. But you can see here very clearly the knowledge graph called out as a key component. That's the source of truth. That's where all the information that actually comes from that you're working with, that VoiceBox has access to. It's coming out of your knowledge graph, not coming from VoiceBox. There's a vector database. This should look a lot like, I don't want to say the traditional, but the popularized LLM stack that Andreessen Horowitz has introduced, but they missed the critical key piece of the knowledge graph. But it's vector database in there. That's the short and long-term working memory. There's additional indexes that we keep in there that are beneficial to VoiceBox for handling each of the different tasks. And that's actually another key thing to call out about VoiceBox, is that it's not a single LLM, a single thing. It's kind of an ensemble approach. Even a singular task like creating a query, which we just saw, has a couple different steps that go on. We don't want to send users incorrect queries. We don't want to send them malformed queries. So there's different linting and debugging steps that go on that use different models that have different expertises or skill sets that we combine in various ways to produce the final product, which is the query to answer the question that you asked. So now I want to jump back into a demo. We're going to try and stay in the tools as much as we can. We're going to shift focus now, though, from Studio. We're going to go into Designer. Designer is our tool for creating knowledge graphs. So we're going to show how VoiceBox can be used to accelerate that process. So we can see here, I've got a Designer project. I've got a couple data sources here at the bottom. These were all CSV files, just because that was easier for me. You can go ahead and use any enterprise data source, which we can show another time, and anything that Stardog supports, VoiceBox can use. So you can see here my prompt, I tried to describe the use case we were actually just looking at. So that use case in Studio, I'm trying to recreate it here in Designer. I can tell you it took days to create that original data set. We're going to recreate it here in a matter of minutes. So you can see my prompt where I'm describing my domain very clearly, very simply, plain English. Goes back to VoiceBox. VoiceBox kind of summarizes what it did. The ontology defines class, tells me everything that I asked for. So I can go ahead and say, yeah, go ahead and add that to my canvas. We can see here, this is my data model that it created. So this is another one of VoiceBox's services, model creation. Created a data model for me. I didn't have to do anything but describe my use case. There was some part of this I didn't like. I could make changes, but this looks pretty good to me. It's exactly what I described, and I can go ahead and now use the VoiceBox suggestion service to map all of this data. So I can go source by source. So US customers, that's my customer information, and all of this will get automatically mapped for me. So you get a confidence. It was said for the label, use the first name. I mean, that's not bad, but I wasn't sure about it. So we can say no and actually use the full name. But everywhere else, it looked like it got the answers. So I can just go ahead and accept those all. And now I can just go source by source. So we've got the product catalog. I'll go ahead and add a mapping there to all the product information. So we can see again, VoiceBox Suggest helps do most of the work for me. And I can see these last few things. I can just go ahead and, oops, excuse me, select that one and make that connection. Now that's fully mapped. So we're doing each of these things. It's only taking a moment to map these individual sources because I'm not actually having to do anything. I'm more or less just supervising what VoiceBox has done. And now I'm mapping purchases, products, so we can see I'm able to do both relationships from one concept to another. So this is product to a purchase and purchase back to a product, from purchases to the customers that made them, and then all of the traditional kind of attributes that I've got. Go ahead. Of course, Zoom is in the way. Now, I've mapped everything. Well, I guess I've got this one more source we can do. Let's go ahead and do that very quickly. Product category. That's great. And now I've mapped everything. I'll go ahead and publish. Apparently have a incomplete mapping. Of course, no live demo is.
You have rewards to your left there, Mike.
Without a mess up. Yeah, I didn't need that one. Oh, Forgot that last little bit. And then I'll just use all the defaults here, and I'm gonna go ahead and just create a new database, new knowledge graph for me for this source, and otherwise accept all the defaults here. And now I've got a new knowledge graph. This is going to go ahead and publish that to my server, and then I will jump over now to Stardog Cloud, and then we're going to go into Explorer so you can see Explorer quickly. Voicebox has not yet been integrated into Explorer, but that's coming soon. We'll be very excited about it. But it can take advantage of the capabilities of Voicebox by, it's very easy to create a knowledge graph now. So we can see, visualize, we can see that schema. This was created for us by Voicebox. We can go in and now see for any of these things, I can just pick out some particular person in the knowledge graph and then just start exploring. And all this new data. This was all created with the help of Voicebox without me having to write any code or do anything in particular. I didn't need any special skill sets to do this. I was able to do this very quickly and easily based on a simple description of my data. So that's a very quick tour of Voicebox integrated in Designer. So let me permit jumping back to the slides quickly here. Find them. Go. So why did we integrate Voicebox with Designer? Well, we want to help people get started with Stardog more quickly. Reasonable business goal for us. But getting started with Stardog more quickly, building your knowledge graph more quickly is something that's very impactful for an organization. You get to take advantage of the network effect that comes from connecting more data. The more sources of information you connect, the more types of questions you can ask about that data, the more variety, more sophisticated questions, having more facets that you can ask about in these questions. And organizations benefit greatly from being able to create knowledge graphs more quickly. There's a 3x increase in development time, corresponding decrease in development costs that Forrester saw when they did their total economic impact report about knowledge graphs. So what we've done with Voicebox is just make it even easier for people to get started. They can get to taking advantage of those cost savings, those time savings, all the joys and benefits the knowledge graph provides, but more quickly, provide more value to their organization faster. Now I want to show one more demo, but before we jump into the demo, I want to talk a bit about the knowledge catalogs. The next demo centers around Voicebox using the knowledge catalog, another new capability of the platform we introduced this year that I'm very excited about. What's the knowledge catalog? So the knowledge catalog is an automated, basically knowledge graph. We will reach out to all of your catalogs and ingest all of that data. All of the sources that you connect to your knowledge graph manually, all of that metadata will also be pulled into the knowledge catalog. It's unified under a single meta model. So you have a single way to see all of your all of your organization's metadata, all the tables and columns, everywhere that the organization has put data across all of the different catalogs that your organization uses. It's bidirectionally synced. So the glossaries that you create in Calibra will show up in Stardog. You can take them, you could create a data model out of them, you could push them back to Calibra so the rest of the organization can benefit. This knowledge catalog, it's just a special knowledge graph. And this universal meta model, we've taught Voicebox how to use. So Voicebox can use the knowledge catalog just, again, like you or I would use it. So let's take a look at how that happens. I'm going to go back over to Studio and open up a new tab. Instead of our training data, we're going to connect to our knowledge catalog. Zoom. And common question people say is, what data do we have in this database? What's in here? So typically that's go to your data catalog, and hopefully it's in that catalog and you look it up, and now maybe there's another catalog you can go look it up in. That's kind of passive metadata. This is how you activate metadata. Voicebox is a user of the Stardog knowledge catalog and can answer those questions for you. So I'm going to ask Voicebox, what's in this Databricks C360 source? There's a theme here around customer 360. So what Voicebox is doing is using this knowledge catalog to generate a query that will help me answer this question. So it's going to use that meta model. It's going to query the catalog and say, hey, Mike, there's credit card information in that database. So this is really useful. And this is the live view. So I'm querying my knowledge graph. Voicebox is querying the knowledge graph. It's querying the knowledge catalog, which is the knowledge graph about the knowledge graph. So I can see this live up-to-date data about how my knowledge graph has been constructed. Oh, there's credit card data in there. Maybe that's going to help me take a next step, now understanding what information I have available. Another common question is, where is my data? Where is my customer data? Where is, my patient data? Where is whatever? So let's ask Voicebox and see if it can help us answer that question too. We'll open up a new session with Voicebox, and I'm gonna go ahead and say, what table contains the concept credit card? I got to give a little extra prompting here. It's a tough query for Voicebox to come up with. This is the, as I said before, the collective expertise of Stardog's technical cadre of folks to create this query, train Voicebox how to create it. There's credit card information that we found in these two sources. So these are two tables in that Databricks data source that we pinpointed to say exactly that's where those tables, that's where that credit card information is. The really amazing thing about this is this querying the knowledge catalog, and then it queries every knowledge graph that it has available on this endpoint to find exactly what it's looking for. It's a very sophisticated query that Voicebox is able to do. It took days for me to be able to figure this out. Voicebox can do it now for everyone immediately. Another great example of how Voicebox can help kind of supercharge knowledge graph efforts at your enterprise. And then I can see we're coming up close to the Q&A session. I want to just take like another minute to show just a couple different queries, a couple examples of Voicebox generating queries and getting answers for me, just using a different data set here. Just shows it wasn't all hard coded. It's a couple different cases. I'm going to pick a different data set. This is the Carnegie Hall Data Lab. This is open source data. So I picked this. If anyone knows Sparkle, one thing you maybe notice is pretty uniform, these queries. There's only one data model here. There's only one scheme that's used. Open data sets are not that nice. So they present an interesting challenge for Voicebox, having to deal with the fact that these vocabularies that open source knowledge graphs and open source data sets tend to use. So performers born in Vienna that have played works by Schubert. So we can see there's 29. Voicebox was able to come up with that quickly and easily. You can see there's a number of different vocabularies used. It's even using Stardog's text match functionality. So it's using fuzzy matching. I could have misspelled Vienna or Schubert. Humans do this all the time. So this is another example of Voicebox's using Stardog. It's taking advantage of the features of the platform to help me get the answer to my question. I think it's a really cool example of how Voicebox can do that, dealing with a very varied data set and using advanced capabilities like the text match service to find the right answer. And then I think with that, I do want to jump over to QA now, because I can see there's a lot of stuff in the queue. I want to make sure we have time to jump to as much of it as we can. So maybe let's get back out to slides to provide a backdrop here. So menu would.
Yeah, I'll talk to this. You can take a look at the QA real quick, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
If anyone's interested in trying Voicebox themselves, we have an early access program coming soon. We're on a wait right now because the program is not yet live, but it will be very shortly. If you're interested in that, you can register for it. There's the link here. We're also going to send this link in the follow-up email. You will have this sent to you. You don't really have to go hunting for it or write it down on the screen right now. But there's an early access program. So if you're interested, please sign up and you can be among the first to try out Voicebox and give us feedback on Voicebox. With that, I think we should go ahead and take questions. Just a reminder to put them in the Q&A. I know there were some in the chat. I think I answered a couple of them there that were relatively simple, but the ones that are more for Mike, please let's get them over to Q&A. And Mike, I'll let you go ahead if you see a couple you want to start with.
Sure. Yeah, there's a lot here. I don't know if we'll get to all of them, but we will do our best. So the first one, does Voicebox need to be provided with any information about the knowledge graph other than the knowledge graph itself? No, that we have worked hard to make it be that way, but Voicebox will do all of the discovery activities that it needs to be able to use the knowledge graph. So you just have to say, that's my knowledge graph over there, Voicebox. This is my question. It will introspect the schema. It will figure out where the data is, what it looks like, how to write the query. So you just need to give it a name and what you need to know. So that similar question, Tenny said, this is very useful. How sensitive is it to the class and property names being clear? There is some sensitivity. So if you look at some of these public data sets like Wikidata that use effectively nonsensical names, you can't rely on simply the structure of the schema. This is another thing that we've been working on. How do you selectively grab information out of the knowledge graph to supplement the description of your knowledge graph for these cases where the data model is inscrutable? That typically isn't the case in most of our customers, big enterprises. They're creating their models from scratch in Designer. The names are clear, the labels are clear, and they're easily used by Designer. But public data sets can be the Wild West. All right, so moving on. Considering that knowledge graphs are built iteratively, they don't immediately have answers to all the questions. Business user doesn't know if the answer is available. How will Voicebox react to the user when it doesn't know the answer? That's a great question. I don't know that I have a great answer for it, but I want to attempt, because it's really related to kind of where we left off in the demo and that knowledge catalog. So yeah, maybe you ask a question and Voicebox generates a query and there are no results. But Voicebox, I showed this the first demo, Voicebox can work with you. So maybe you work with it iteratively and you refine the query and you get down to something that does return results. Or Voicebox can use that knowledge catalog and say, hey, well, look like you were asking me about customer information. This doesn't return any queries, but I can see there's 17 data sources in your organization that have customer information. Maybe we should consider some of those. So maybe it's just a change in knowledge graph. So these are things that we're thinking about and working on adding these capabilities to Voicebox as development continues. But I think that's a key way to activate the metadata. Voicebox has a very nice role in the story of how organizations actively activate their metadata. Okay. Your question, does one have to use the same terminology as in the KG? For example, using the term name where the property was name. What if it was using some other property? Yeah, so no, you don't. The short answer is no, you don't. So we call this schema summarizations, I guess kind of related to the first two questions. This was one of the first things we did with Voicebox, was figure out how to communicate a schema, including weird things about IDs and non-standard ways people represent bits of information, so that Voicebox can, again, do all the same things that I do when I look at a new data set and be able to get a lay of the land, so it knows how to write a query just like I would. Will the knowledge catalog integrate with the Informatica data catalog as well? Not currently, but that is on the roadmap. Can Voicebox create a data schema consistent with BFO? Probably not. BFO is not something that we've considered. We don't use it for our training data. There's not a lot of information in the public models about BFO. I don't think we'd be able to do that. Is Voicebox using an LLM to generate the Sparkle queries? Yes, multiple, but yes, as I said, it's an ensemble approach. But that kind of the primary thing that I showed today was Voicebox generating queries, Voicebox generating a data model, and then Voicebox generating mappings to connect the data model to the data. And then I can use it to make queries that I can run and get answers.
And Mike, I'm going to answer a couple questions about the early access program while you're looking at the questions.
Yeah, great.
A couple of people have put questions in there about the early access program. So does it cost to enter the program? No, there's no cost to enter the program. To be part of the program, you do need to be a Stardog Cloud user or sign up for Stardog Cloud. It's not a prereq, but one of the things in the process would be to create a Stardog Cloud account so that you can try it. Another person who signed up early, thank you, asked about the timing there. We plan to get it out shortly. We're working through it. We want to make sure what we get out to you is has all the proper documentation and everything, and it's run the right way. So bear with us while we're getting everything together to do it properly. I think those are the only, that summarizes a few of the questions on early access. Yeah. So back to you.
I know we're at time, but there's one or two questions maybe we can get to before we let everyone go back to their days. The first question, would Voicebox work if data was virtualized in Snowflake? And then I guess also related, would it work with unstructured files, data outside the knowledge graph? So data needs to be in the knowledge graph. That's number one, but the knowledge graph Stardog can connect to both Snowflake and unstructured data. And we can work with your NLP framework of choice. We also have NLP stuff built into the Stardog platform. So Snowflake and unstructured content can both be brought into your knowledge graphs. And then the answer is yes, Voicebox will absolutely work with either Snowflake or unstructured data. And then last here, can you briefly expand on the knowledge catalog's role answering a question like, where can I find customer financial sales data for last March? Is the expectation a person would create the knowledge graph catalog, or is raw data parsed to generate the catalog? Closer to the latter. So we will connect to your catalog. So you just have to tell us where they are, and we will pull in all the relevant data. So all of the information they have about all the tables and columns, all the different data sources, your glossaries, all assets, asset types, everything that's in Calibra and Purview and Unity, Atlin, slurped automatically into Stardog. That's what's created this knowledge catalog. We will overlay the meta model on top of it so you have a uniform interface to all of that data. And then at that point, it's a knowledge graph like any other, just one that we've specially trained Voicebox to be able to use. But it is this automatic view of all of your metadata within the organization. It's a very compelling way to start activating that metadata, Voicebox or not.
All right, and no, Mike, you're getting close. Any others that you feel compelled, like, hey, let's make sure we get this answered?
I mean, there's another 16 in the queue. I think we could stay here all afternoon. So maybe we'll have to take the rest of them offline, but so many good questions by folks, and they just keep coming in.
And we can create some blogs and other quick content on this. FAQs from this event might be excellent for Voicebox.
Mm-hmm. So with that, I appreciate everyone staying a little bit extra. I was really excited to show everyone Voicebox, get a chance to talk about the knowledge catalog. So thank you for everyone's time today. Look forward to more questions and more time talking about Voicebox.
Absolutely. Thanks everybody for following along. Expect an email from us with today's recording, some additional information, the link to that early access program, and don't hesitate to reach out to us with further questions. Have a nice day.
Bye.